hour's traffic of our stage, the which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend.
It's the music that makes it, right? Okay, let's look at scene 1.
Gregory, on my word, will not carry coals.
No, then we should be colliers.
I mean, and we being collar will draw.
Aye, while you live, draw your neck out of collar.
I strike quickly, being moved.
But thou art not quickly moved to strike.
The dog in the house of Montague moves me.
To move is to stir, and to be valiant is to stand. Therefore, if thou art moved, thou runnest away.
A dog of that house shall move me to stand. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's.
That shows thee a weak slave, for the weakest goes to the wall.
'Tis true, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. Therefore I will push Montague's men from the wall, and thrust his maids to the wall.
The quarrel is between our masters and us, their men.
'Tis all one. I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with the men, I will be civil with the maids. I will cut off their heads.
The heads of the maids?
Aye, the heads of the maids, or their maiden heads. Take it in what sense thou wilt.
They must take it in sense that feel it.
Me they shall feel while I am able to stand, and 'tis known I am a pretty piece of flesh.
'Tis well thou art not fish, if thou hast been poor John. Draw thy tool. Here comes of the house of Montagues.
My naked...
Okay. Anybody have a clue what's going on? Yeah, that's how I kill people. Okay, so so if you'll look in the book at this up here in italics, those are called stage directions. Okay, and in the stage directions, it tells you kind of the background of what's going on. So it says, enter Samson and Gregory with swords and bucklers of the house of Capulet. So they have some swords of the house of Capulet. If you go backwards and look at characters in the play, go find out who Samson and Gregory are. Serving men. So they're servants. From what house? Alex, pull your mask up. Pull your mask up. Thank you. From the house of Capulet. So they are Capulet's servants. And they are out walking around on the street. Let's look at what they're saying. Samson has told Gregory will not carry coals. Do y'all know what that means? Yeah. Angie's remembering to look on this side for more information. In line 1, it tells us that to carry coals means to suffer humiliation patiently. So look, it's a literally to carry coals, I mean to like carry charcoal, right? But it was back then used in a figurative sense to mean somebody that puts up with being insulted. And so what is Samson saying they're not going to do? Or yeah, what's he saying they're not going to do? We're not going to be insulted. And Gregory tells him, no, he will not carry coals. No, for then we would be colliers. What does it tell us a collier is? Literally somebody that carries and delivers coal. So he thinks he's being funny. That is a play on words, which is a pun. Thank you, Arlen, for remembering my favorite thing. So they're playing on the word coal or the phrase carry coals. They're playing on the word collier because Samson says I and we be in collar will draw. Do y'all know what CHOLER means? It doesn't tell you on the other side. Okay. So back in the day, they believed that your moods were controlled by fluids in your body. Okay. And they were called the 4 humors. And if they were out of balance, these fluids in your body, it could make you a temperamental person if you had too much what they called choler in you, CHOLER, which we would call bile, that stuff that gives you heartburn, that yellow stuff that gives you heartburn. So they said if you had too much of that in your body, you'd be an angry person. So he's playing on the word choler, CHOLER. And he says, and we be in choler or anger will draw. What do you think he's talking about drawing? pictures? Swords, yeah. If he's angry, he's going to draw a sword. So if somebody insults him, what do they plan on doing? Yeah, he wants to draw a sword and fight. And Samson says, I strike quickly being moved. So if somebody ticks him off, what's he going to do? Strike quickly. So he might cut off their head. And Gregory says, but thou art not quickly moved to strike. So he's like, nobody's bothering you to strike. And so Samson says, a dog of the house of Montague moves me. So even a dog of who? Montague's would tick him off enough to pull his sword out and fight. Okay? So what does that say about the servants and how they feel about the Montague family? Yeah, they hate them too. So if even the servants hate each other, what does that tell you about this feud? It's pretty bad if even their like paid servants hate each other. So he's like, even a dog would move me to fight. And so Gregory tells him to move is to stir and to be valiant is to stand. Do y'all know what it means to be valiant? Brave, yeah. It's another word for brave. So he's saying if you're brave, you'll stand firm, right? You'll stand still. Therefore, if thou art moved, if you're being moved, you're running away. So he's teasing his buddy here, right? Saying what? You're scared. If you're moving, you're running away. And Samson says, a dog of that house shall move me to stand. So even a dog would make him want to stand and fight. I will take the wall of any man or maid of Montague's. So what is he essentially saying? Put it in 2021 speak. What's he saying? We're line 11. Yeah, we'll fight. I'll fight. I don't mind fighting. I'm good for a fight. So Gregory tells him when he says he'll take the wall, he says, that shows thee a weak slave. For the weakest goes to the wall. Now, what he's talking about here is, have you fellas been taught to be gentlemen? Okay, so if you're walking with a date on the sidewalk, what side should she be on? Why?
Because it's farthest from the road.
Farthest from the road, right? So you wouldn't put her in danger by putting her close to the sidewalk. Okay, so women were considered weak back then, right? And that's where that rule originated. That the weaker people walk toward the right. The big brave men walk toward the road, okay? Or not, maybe not the right, but toward a building, whereas the stronger one walks by the road, okay? Because that's the more dangerous position. So slaves were supposed to take the wall, meaning go to that side by the building, to let rich people pass on the strong side, okay? And so he says, if you're taking the wall, that means you're weak. Is what he's telling Samson. And Samson says, 'tis true, and therefore women, being the weaker vessels, are ever thrust to the wall. So he's talking about women being weak now, and he says, therefore I will push Montague's men from the wall and thrust his maids to the wall. So they're being dudes now and saying some bawdy things, okay? Do y'all kind of get where he's going with that? Turning it into kind of this locker room talk that young men might engage in when they're alone. Okay. So, and he ain't done. It gets worse. So Gregory tells him that quarrels between our masters and us, their men. So what's Gregory saying? Let's not get into this with women. This ain't got nothing to do with women. And Samson says, 'tis all one. It's all the same to him. I will show myself a tyrant. When I have fought with the men, I will be civil with the maids. What does it mean to be civil? To be nice and get along, right? Once he's dealt with the men, he's going to be nice to the ladies. And he says, I will cut off their heads. Well, that doesn't sound very nice, does it? And Gregory said, the heads of the maids? And Samson says at the top of page 11, the heads of the maids or their maiden heads. Take it in what sense thou wilt. Take it however it comes, however you want to take it. Y'all don't know what a maidenhead is? Okay, I'm gonna leave that one in the air for you. And yeah, he's there. It's being very bawdy here, sexually suggestive, but he's essentially talking about. It would have been funny to Shakespearean audiences because women had no place in society except as property, right? So men could joke about whatever they wanted to. In today's society, I hope this would not be something that it happens. Because what he's saying, maidenhood is a physical form of virginity. Okay? So if he's saying he'll take that from him, what's he saying? Yeah, he's making a joke about rape, which is not funny. And then he says, you can take that however you want to. And Gregory says, they must take it in sense that feel it. And Samson says, me they shall feel while I'm able to stand. Y'all see what he's saying? He thinks he's cute, doesn't he? He thinks he's pretty cute. And then they get to, joking around and, jiving each other like dudes do. Well, then here comes Abram with another serving man. Somebody tell me who Abram is. Go back to that character list. Who is Abram? Of the house of Rutro. So they're out in the street talking about how if I see one of those Montagues, I'm going to pull my sword out because I'm big and bad. Well, here comes Montague. And what Samson told us he's going to do? He's going to fight him. Even a dog. If it's a dog, I'll fight the dog. He hates him. So here comes another serving man of the house of Montague. Let's see how this goes if he really does put up or shut up.
Quarrel, I will back.
Okay, I forget that this goes off.
How? Turn thy back and run?
Fear me not.
No, Mary, I fear thee.
Let us take the law of our sides. Let them begin.
I will frown as I pass by and let them take it as they list.
Nay, as they dare. I will bite my thumb at them, which is disgrace to them if they bear it.
Okay, so he says, Samson, for all his talk, right? He says, my naked weapon is out. Talking about his sword. He's drawn his sword. He says, quarrel, I will back thee. What does it mean to quarrel? Fight. So what is he telling Gregory to do? You start it, I'll back you up. Yeah, all his big talk, right? And then Gregory says, how? By turning thy back and running? That's how you're going to have my back? So he's messing with him still. And Samson says, let us take the law of our sides. Let them begin. How would the law be on their side if the Montagues started? It'd be self-defense, right? So he's like, let them start it. And Gregory says, okay, I will frown as I pass by and let them take it how they want it. So what's he going to do? Mean mug them, right? He's going to mean mug, see if it'll start them fighting. He ain't going to say nothing. He's just going to make a face at him, right? And Samson says, okay, maybe they'll dare to. He goes, okay, I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace. Do y'all know back then what it meant to bite your thumb? Yeah, it's an ugly gesture. So what might we do now to make an ugly gesture at somebody? Don't do it, but tell me. Okay, you might flip them off. I don't want to be flipped off, thank you. But so you might flip. So you're trying to incense them without speaking, right? Because if they go yelling at him and being like, come on, get you some, what you want, if they do that, then they're starting it, right? But if they just make a gesture, they ain't starting anything. I mean, anybody, you can be scratching, All right.
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?
I do bite my thumb, sir.
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?
Is the law of our side if I say I?
No.
No, sir. I do not bite my thumb at you, sir. But I bite my thumb, sir.
Do you quarrel, sir?
Quarrel, sir. No, sir.
But if you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as good a man as you.
No, better.
Well, sir.
Okay, so they're gonna, he says, so he bites his thumb, and Abram's like, bite your thumb at me? And he says, I bite my thumb. You biting your thumb at me? well, I mean, I bite my thumb. And he says to Gregory, is law on my side if I say I do bite it at him? And Gregory's like, nope. He goes, nope, I don't bite my thumb at you, sir. Did you notice how he put emphasis on certain words to let us know what he meant? Remember we did that yesterday? I didn't say you stole my money. Okay. He said, I didn't bite my thumb at you. So I bite my thumb, but not at you. So you see how he's using tone to make some meaning here? And Gregory's like, do you quarrel? Like, you got a problem? And they're like, no, I ain't got a problem. You sure you ain't got a problem? Because if you do, I'm the man for you. I got you. So it's like put up or shut up time, right? So they got it good and started here. And then here comes Benvolio. Somebody tell me who Benvolio is. Who's Benvolio? Yeah, he's a cousin to Romeo. Kinsman generally means cousin, some kinfolk to Romeo. So he's a Montague, right? So he comes in. Let's see how it rolls now.
Say better. Here comes one of my master's kinsmen.
Yes, better, sir. You lie. Draw if you be men. Gregory, remember thy washing blow. Hark, fools! Put up your swords. You know not what you do. What?
Okay. So do you remember I don't know, you might have seen this in high school, where people are acting like they want to fight, but they don't really want to fight because they don't want to get hurt. So they wait till they're close to a teacher to start it so that it gets broken up pretty quick so they don't get hurt. Y'all ever known a fight like that? Yeah. My husband broke up one like that the other day. They waited till he was like right there at him before they started swinging on each other, knowing he's going to get in it and stop it, because they didn't want to get hurt. So that's essentially what's going on here, because he says when Benvolio comes up, they're saying, are you saying you're a better man than me? Well, then here Benvolio comes up and Gregory's like, oh, yeah, say better, because here comes Benvolio. Because he knows what's going to happen. He'll break it up. So he's like, yeah, I'm a better man than you. And they're like, you lie. And then they like, draw if you be men. And then they start fighting. And then here comes Benvolio to split it up. And he tells them, put up your swords. You know not what you do. Well, here comes Tybalt. Who is Tybalt? Somebody tell me who Tybalt is.
Tybalt is
He's Juliet's cousin. So he's a Capulet. Well, here he comes. All right, so let's see what he's going to do.
But art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benvolio. Look upon thy death.
I do but keep the peace. Put up thy sword, or manage it to part these men with me.
What? Drawn and talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee.
Ooh.
Have at thee, coward!
What noise is this? Give me my long sword. Oh!
Crotch! What call you for a sword?
My sword, I say. Old Montague has come and flourishes his blade in spite of me. Thou villain Capulet, hold me not, let me go.
Thou shalt not serve one push to seek a foe.
Okay, so while they're fighting, Tybalt comes up. Benvolio is trying to part him. What does Tybalt do? Y'all pull your mask up. What does Tybalt do? He tries to start fighting. He's like, look upon thy death, coward, and all this stuff, right? So what does this tell you about Benvolio's personality? His first instinct is to do what? Break it up. Keep the peace. What is Tybalt's first instinct? To throw down fighting. So remember how I told you about dramatic fools? Characters that are kind of opposite of each other? We got a peacekeeper and a fighter. Okay? And then here comes old Capulet and Montague, and they won't get in a piece of it and get in on it. And did you notice, this is kind of funny on the bottom of 13, Capulet says, what is this? Give me my long sword. And his wife's like, you don't need a sword, you need a crutch. Ooh, right? All right. So, and then Capulet's like, here comes old Montague, I'm going to fight. And then Lady Montague's like telling her husband, you shall not stir 1 foot to seek a foe. Meaning an enemy, right? So the women don't want them fighting. But the men, if people are fighting on their behalf, what do they feel beholden to do? What do they feel like they have to do? Get up in it, right? So they're getting up in it. Well, here comes Prince Aeschylus. He is like the leader of Verona, okay? Here comes Prince Aeschylus with all his people. Let's see how he feels about it.
Rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel. What will they not hear? What ho, you men, you beasts, that quench the fire of your pernicious rage with purple fountains issuing from your veins, on pain of torture. From those bloody hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground and hear the sentence of your moved prince. 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word by thee, old Capulet, and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens cast by their grave beseeming ornaments to wield old partisans in hands as old, cankered with peace, to part your cankered hate. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace.
Ruh-roh. How does he, wait. Sorry, he wasn't done.
All the rest depart away. You, Capulet, shall go along with me. And Montague, come you this afternoon to know our farther pleasure in this case, to old Freetown, our common judgment place. Once more, on pain of death, all men depart.
All right, so how does the prince feel about this fight?
He thinks it's disgraceful.
It is disgraceful. What does he say? How do we know that he hates it? What's some of the language he used to set this tone? What's his mood right now?
Mad.
He's mad. How do we know he's mad? Yeah, he's got a lot of words here. Look at he calls them rebellious subjects, enemies to peace, profaners of this neighbor-stained steel. Profaner. So neighbor-stained steel. What's staining what's steel that they're using? Swords, and what's staining it? From who?
Dirt.
Neighbor-stained. From their neighbors. So he ain't real happy about them fighting each other. And he calls them, you men, you beasts. So that's not a happy term, is it? He didn't say you friends, you cuddle bunnies. He calls them beasts. He says, on pain of torture from those bloody hands, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground. Or what? If they don't throw their weapons down, what? On pain of torture. He's going to hurt them. And then he says, how many times has this happened lately? 3. 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word. So just with a word, these people start fighting. And he says it's happened 3 times. By thee, old Capulet and Montague, have thrice, that means 3, disturbed our streets, the quiet of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens cast by their grave beseeming ornaments to wield old partisans in hands as old, cankered with peace, to part your cankered hate. So 3 times you have come out here, like y'all's business fighting has disturbed our streets and made people start fighting. And then what does he tell them is going to happen if they do this again? What does he say? If you ever disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of our peace. So if you do this again, we're going to put you to death. That's pretty strong words, isn't it? So he says, everybody needs to leave. Y'all come with me to talk. Capulet, you come with me to talk. Montague, you come this afternoon. So he's pretty angry at him. And we have learned that this is not the first time this has turned to violence. It's the 3rd, right? Lately. So that just leaves the Montagues standing here, okay? Let's look and see what happens. Follow along in your book. Pick your book up. Nathan, pick your book up.
This ancient
Nathan, pick your book up.
Speak, nephew. Were you by when it began?
Here were the servants
Okay.
of your adversary, and yours
Pick your book up.
close fighting ere I did approach. I drew to part them. In the instant came the fiery Tybalt with his sword prepared, which, as he breathed defiance to my ears, he swung about his head and cut the winds, who, nothing hurt withal, hissed him in scorn. While we were interchanging thrusts and blows, came more and more, and fought on part and part, till the prince came, who parted either part.
Oh, where is Romeo? Saw you him today? Right glad I am he was not at this fray.
Madam,
Okay. So they asked Benvolio, which is Montague's nephew, what happened? Who started this? What did he tell him? Yeah, he said, here were the servants of your adversary. Who's his adversary? He is Montague. Who's his adversary? Capulet, yeah. So he says, the servants of Capulet and your servants, close fighting ere I did approach. So when he came up, what were they doing? So did he know who started it? And he didn't assume, right? He just said they were fighting when I came up. And he says, I drew to part them. So he drew his sword to make them stop fighting. Is that true? Yep, that's true so far. In the instant came the fiery Tybalt with his sword prepared, which as he breathed defiance to my ears, he swung about his head and cut the winds. And then we started fighting. So is that true? Tybalt comes up already mad and ready to fight? Yep. And they fight. And then till the prince comes and stops him. So does he tell the truth? He's not even embellishing it, right? He's telling what happened. Tybalt was mad and cussing him and swinging his sword around, and then they start fighting. So what does that tell us about Benvolio? He didn't say their servants came up and started some stuff, and he didn't add and all this and make up lies, right? He told the truth. He's a peacemaker, and so far we know him to be honest. And Lady Montague is real happy that Romeo wasn't there and wants to know if he's seen him today. So let's see what Benvolio says.
an hour before the worshipped sun peered forth the golden window of the east, a troubled mind drove me to walk abroad, where underneath the grove of sycamore that westward rooteth from the city side, so early walking did I see your son. Towards him I made, but he was ware of me and stole into the covert of the wood. I, measuring his affections by my own, which then most sought where most might not be found, being one too many by my weary self, pursued my humor, not pursuing his, and gladly shunned who gladly fled from me.
Many a morning hath he there been seen, with tears augmenting the fresh morning's dew, adding to clouds more clouds with his deep sighs. But also soon as the all-cheering sun should in the farthest east begin to draw the shady curtains from Aurora's bed, away from night steals home my heavy son, and private in his chamber pens himself, shuts up his windows, locks fair daylight out, and makes himself an artificial night. Black and portentous must this humor prove, unless good counsel may the cause remove.
My noble uncle, do you know the cause?
I neither know it nor can learn of him.
Have you importuned him by any means?
Both by myself and many other friends. But he, his own affection's counselor, is to himself, I will not say how true, but to himself so secret and so close, so far from sounding and discovery, as is the bud bit with an envious worm, ere he can spread his sweet leaves to the air, or dedicate his beauty to the same. Could we but learn from whence his sorrows grow, we would as willingly give cure as know.
Okay, what is going on with Romeo? What's Benvolio say? Has he seen him today? When? What time of the day was it? How do we know? An hour before the worship sun peered forth the golden window of the east. What is that an example of? What kind of figurative language is that? The worship sun peering forth. Personification. Because what can a sun not do? Peer. It can't look, right? But he's acting like it can. So that's personification. So he says, a troubled mind drove me to walk abroad. So he goes walking. Why? Why is he even up? What does it say? A troubled mind. So he has something on his mind. So he goes out walking. And then he goes west from the city side, and what does he see? Romeo. And he says, towards him I made. So he starts walking towards him. But he was aware of me. He was aware of me and stole into the covert of the wood. So he sees Romeo, his cousin and BFF, and Romeo sees him, and what does Romeo do? Took off into the woods. So that suggests Romeo does not want to talk to him for whatever reason. And he says, I, measuring my affections by his own, pursued my humor, not pursuing his. He assumed that because he's thinking, I'm all troubled, and so he must be too about something. I'm going to leave him alone, right? And what does Montague say he's been acting like lately? Yeah, why do we feel like Romeo's been depressed? What tells us that he's been depressed? He says, many a morning hath he there been seen. So this is not the first time he's been wandering out in these woods in early hours of the day with tears augmenting the fresh morning dew. So what's he been doing? Crying. He's walking around crying. Adding clouds to more clouds with his deep sighs. So what's a sigh? Brian's got a good one. That's a big one. That would hyperventilate me today. So when people go around sighing like that, what does that tell you about them? They're sad. They're depressed. It's very angsty teenage nonsense, right? But he says, all so soon as the all-cheering sun should in the farthest east begin to draw the shady curtains from Aurora's bed. What a beautiful way to say when the sun comes up, right? Sun comes up. And away from light steals home my heavy sun. So when the sun comes up, where's he go? Home. And private in his chamber pins himself, shuts up his windows, locks fair daylight out, and makes himself an artificial night. So what does he do when he gets home? Makes it dark in his room, right? He makes an artificial night. We used to call that, when I was in college, my freshman year of college, the natmosphere. We go back to the room, take a nap after our first class, and you make it real dark in there and cold, and you get you a good blanket. Got to make it dark to have a good nap, right? But do you think he really just wants to take a nap? What's going on with him? Why does he want it to be dark? Why would he not want to be all light and stuff? Yeah, he wants to be alone and sad with his feelings, and it's hard to be sad when it's cheerful and sunny, right? So we're going to make it dark. He's all sad. It's very emo. Do y'all remember the emo craze? With all the dark clothes and the sighs and the feeling sorry for ourselves thing. People had a lot of bad hair back then. So Romeo's the OG emo here. Going to his room, sighing and putting the window curtains up. Black and portentous must this humor prove, unless good counsel may the cause remove. So he wants to find out what is wrong with him. Why is he acting like this? So he asked, have you asked him what's wrong? And Montague says, yes. But his own affections counselor is to himself. So what does Romeo say? He doesn't say anything. He's his own counsel. He won't talk. But he says, could we but learn from whence his sorrows grow, we would as willingly give cure as no. So if we could find out what's wrong with him, we could help him, right? So what do you think he's sent at Benvolio to do? Yeah, to find out what's wrong with him. So you ever been if your mom or daddy, if they wanted to know what's wrong with you, you ain't gonna tell them, right? We don't talk to our parents. That's not cool. But you might tell your friend, right? So he's thinking maybe he'll get further than the parents have been able to get. So let's see what. Keep forgetting to keep this thing awake. Okay. Let's see what he says to old Benvolio. We're about to be introduced to Romeo. Think about how he's characterized here, okay?
I would thou wert so happy by thy stay to hear true shrift. Come, madam,
Let's away. Good morrow, cousin. Is the day so young? But news struck 9. I'm me. Sad hours seem long. Was that my father that went hence so fast? It was. What sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? Not having that which having makes them short. Ah, in love. Out. Of love. Out of her favor where I am in love.
Why is he so sad? He likes somebody, but he didn't say like. What did he say? He loves somebody, but what's wrong? Huh? He's not loved back. It's he essentially got rejected by the love. Oh, bless his heart, he's in love and she don't love him.
Alas, that love so gentle in his view should be so tyrannous and rough in proof. Alas, that love whose view is muffled still should without eyes see pathways to his will. Where shall we dine? Oh me, what fray was here? Yet tell me not, for I've heard it all. Here's much to do with hate, but more with love. Why then, oh, brawling love, oh, loving hate, oh, anything of nothing first create. Oh, heavy lightness, serious vanity, misshapen chaos of well-seeming forms, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, still waking sleep that is not what it is. This love feel I that feel no love in this. Dost thou not laugh? No, cuz, I rather weep. Good heart, and what? At thy good heart's oppression. Huh?
Okay, so he's in love and he's not loved back and he's all up in his feelings about it. So, did y'all see any of this figurative language that we talked about the other day in this little speech he gives here? Look at what it says. We can't look at what it says if we're not holding our book. We sure can't for asleep. Love y'all. Don't care if you're bored though. You gotta push through. We have to do hard things when we're grown and y'all are grown. So, what's he saying about love? Because he says, what sadness lengthens Romeo's hours? Why does sadness lengthen the hours?
When you're sad, time
Yeah, time just doesn't want to move when it's not fun, right? Like this class, it feels like really, really short because we have so much fun in here. But like you go to another class that's not, and it's like takes forever.
It takes forever.
Why are you just y'all are just not science minded people.
This class.
See, Angie, you get an A. Thank you. She said this class goes by short because it's so much fun.
It does
Like algebra and biology is the longest classes I've ever taken.
When I was y'all's age, I felt the same way because I did not love math and science. And guess what? It has not been proven to be a very monetary compensation. In my sister loved it. And she's a veterinarian now. Yeah. I don't, same DNA, but I don't get it. So, I'm just saying it might not be the most fun, but it pays better in the long run to like the math and the science. But he's saying that sadness lengthens his hours. It makes it feel like it's just forever. And he says, he asked why, and Romeo says, because I don't have that, which having them makes them short. So he doesn't have something he wants that would make him happy. And so that's when Benvolio goes, oh, in love? And he goes, no, out of love. Out of her favor where I am in love. So he loves her, but what? She doesn't love him. It's very sad. And then Benvolio says, alas, that love, so gentle in his view, should prove so tyrannous and rough. So when we think of love, do we usually think of words like tyrannous and rough? You know what tyrannous is? You know what a tyrant is? Tyrant. Y'all hadn't had Miss Green yet for history, have you? Okay, you'll learn about tyrants. So that tyrant is like a leader that's like mean and just tells people what to do. And so how's love like that? How can it be rough and tyrannous? That doesn't sound good, does it? Love's supposed to be this wonderful thing. When is love not wonderful? Like a divorce, that's not wonderful, is it? It used to be love, but it ain't no more. Or when you love somebody and they don't love you back, that's pretty rough, right? Y'all don't know about that. Everybody would love y'all back, right? Chevy's like, I know nothing about the drama of love. Don't make me say things. So we know that, like, for as wonderful as something can be, it depends, right? I mean, it might be wonderful. It may be wonderful when everything's happy and good, right? But it ain't always like that. Trust me, it's not. Like in the beginning, especially, things are wonderful. Then you find out that when they clip their beard, they leave the hair all in the sink and don't clean it up, or they snore, or they like hang their dirty clothes on the doorknob. I don't know, whatever. It's not always wonderful and perfect, right? But especially when they don't love you anymore and you still feel like you're in love. So that would be rough and tyrannous. And Romeo says all this stuff about love. He says, he sees that there's been this fight. He goes, oh gosh, what happened here? And he's like, I don't want to know. He says, tell me not, for fear I've heard it all. There's much to do with hate, but more with love. And then he says, oh, brawling love. There we go with that O. What does it mean to brawl? Fight. Fighting love. That doesn't sound like it goes together, does it? It sounds like it would be a contradiction. What is a phrase that contradicts itself, yet reveals a kind of truth? An oxymoron. Thank you, Angie. Y'all remember oxymorons? Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of them in here. Give me another one. Oh, loving hate. How does that even work? Huh? Heavy lightness. Serious vanity. These things are all opposites. So how can love be good things and bad things? At least for Romeo. Huh? Yeah, if he's not being loved back, that doesn't feel very good, does it? So something that should be good is instead for him very bad. Look, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, still waking sleep that is not what it is. This love I feel that feel no love in this. So he feels it, but it's not returned. So he feels this heavy lightness and this, it's very emo, right? He's depressed because this girl does not love him back. Who do you assume that this girl is? Do we know? Why do you assume it's Juliet? Because it's the title of the book? Okay. So you feel like they've been together and she dumped him or something? You think it could be somebody else? Why do you say that? So Angie thinks they hadn't even met yet. Why would maybe we assume it's not Juliet? What do we know about their families? So could we assume that they already know each other and have been dating on the side? Maybe. But would they have a lot of cause to hang out together? Because remember, she's a teenage girl. Is she going to be just getting to run around and do as she wants to in 1500 Italy? You think so?
She's going to be like, what's that movie? That girl that rides a horse and she shoots arrows and stuff. Come on, man. Brave. Come on, man.
Brave? That is not what I thought about with this. But because she's got to go find a husband and she can't just do what she wants to do. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And that's medieval Scotland, right? So this ain't far off. This is post-Renaissance Italy. So, women were property. They didn't get to go just hang out and do. So, especially you think she'd be running on the slick with the guy that her daddy hates, his family. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. So let's look at the top of 23. What time it is? I told y'all we run a little behind from yesterday, so let's pick up the pace.
Hey, son.
Stop yourself. Let's see. Y'all remind me to keep this thing awake. I don't keep doing that.
Is love's transgression. Griefs of mine own lie heavy in my breast, which thou wilt propagate to have it pressed with more of thine. This love that thou hast shown doth add more grief to too much of mine own. Love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs, being purged, a fire sparkling in lovers' eyes, being vexed, a scene nourished with loving tears. What is it else? A madness most discreet, a choking gall, and a preserving sweet. Farewell, my coz. Soft, I will go along. And if you leave me so, you do me wrong. Tut, I have lost myself. I am not here. This is not Romeo. Oh, he's some other where. Is that you love? What? Shall I groan and tell thee? Groan? Why, no. But sadly, tell me who? A sick man in sadness makes his will, a word ill urged to one that is so ill. In sadness, cousin, I do love a woman. I aimed so near when I supposed you loved. All right, good markman. And she's fair, I love. All right, fair mark, fair cuz, is soonest hit. Well, in that hit you miss. She'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow, she hath Dian's wit. And in strong proof of chastity, well armed from love's weak childish bow, she lives uncharmed. She will not stay the siege of loving terms, nor bide the encounter of assailing eyes, nor open lap to saints seducing gold. Oh, she is rich in beauty, only poor that when she dies, with beauty dies her store, that she hath sworn that she will still live chaste. She hath, and in that sparing makes huge waste. For beauty, starved with her severity, cuts beauty off from all posterity. She is too fair, too wisely too fair, to merit bliss by making me despair. She hath forsworn to love, and in that vow do I live dead that live to tell it now. Be ruled by me, forget to think of her. Oh, teach me how I should forget to think. By giving liberty unto thine eyes, examine other beauties. 'Tis the way to call hers exquisite, in question more. These happy masks that kiss fair ladies' brows, being black, puts us in mind they hide the fair. He that is struck and blind cannot forget the precious treasure of his eyesight lost. Show me a mistress that is passing fair. What doth her beauty serve but as a note where I may read who passed that passing fair? Farewell, thou canst not teach me to forget. I'll pay that doctrine, or else die in debt.
Okay, so he is toe up, right, about being in love. What does he call on page 23? What? Tell me one of the ways he describes love. Love is what? What does he say on the top of page 23? How does he describe love?
Transgression.
As a transgression, okay. What's the transgression? If you say the Lord's Prayer, the alternate version, sin. Sin. It's a sin. And what else does he say about it? Love is what? A smoke made with the fume of sighs. Being purged, a fire sparkling in lovers' eyes. Being vexed, a sea nourished with loving tears. All right, none of that sounds bad, right? But what is it else he says? A madness most discreet. What is madness? Craziness, right? A choking gall and a preserving sweet. So preserving sweet sounds good, doesn't it? But does choking gall sound good? So again, it's this dichotomy of something that can be opposites, right? It just depends on how it's used, right? Love is wonderful when both people like love each other and it's all good and happy. Love is terrible when that goes away for somebody. So, it can be two things at once. And then finally, Benvolio gets out of him. Tell me what is going on. He's like, okay, I love a woman. He's like, well, I guess pretty close to that, right? And they get to talking about this marksman stuff. A fair mark is soonest hit. What are they talking about? Shooting an arrow, right? Hitting a mark. Who shoots an arrow to make people fall in love? Cupid, the little fat baby angel that flies around shooting people to make them fall in love. So he says, well, in that hit you missed, she'll not be hit with Cupid's arrow. So what's she determined to do? Not fall in love. He says, instead, she hath Diane's wit. Do y'all know who Diane or Diana, the goddess of? It's an illusion. Y'all remember what illusions are? Where it alludes to something or references something not in the story. So it's talking about Greek mythology here. Y'all know what Diane, Alex, was the goddess of? A bunch of stuff, but she was wisdom. And chastity. Do y'all know what chastity is? Chastity? Y'all know what chastity is? Chastity. That's your sister's name? Purity, yeah. If you take a vow of chastity, what are you not going to do? You might fall in love, but what you not going to do? It. Yeah, you're not going to do it, right? So, he says, in strong proof of chastity, well armed. So she's not going to do anything. Look at the top of page 25. And this is where dude's going to do. Remember how I told y'all that Shakespeare writes about people like things change, circumstances change, people don't change, right? Look at these dudes being dudes here. He says, from love's weak childish bow, she lives uncharmed. Who's the childish bow of love? Who carries the bow and arrow? The little baby angel, Cupid. She lives uncharmed from that. It's not going to affect her. She will not stay the siege of loving terms. So she ain't listening to all his love words, right? It doesn't do anything. Nor bide the encounter of assailing eyes. So what else didn't get into her? The look. Yeah, Chevy's got the look. Don't let him turn it on you, girls. It's killer over here. He thinks. Look at this next one. Nor ope, which is short for open. Her lap to saint seducing gold. She won't open her lap. Y'all get that? Chevy got it. His head spun around like the Exorcist over here. What'd you say? I told y'all it's mature. You got to put your mature hat on. I told Javari to borrow one from somebody, so we'll see if he did. That when she is rich in beauty. So what does that mean? If you're rich in beauty, what does it mean? You're beautiful, but only poor. So the only thing she's poor in is that when she dies, with beauty dies her store. Is she wasting her beauty? He says. You can't take it with you. Like, use your beauty on earth. What's he want her to use it for? Right. Right? It. It's a waste of being beautiful without it. And that is another part of it, because we get down here and he says, so Benvolio says, she was sworn that she will live chaste, meaning she will not it with anybody. And he says, she hath. Who makes a vow to live chaste? Do y'all know? Nuns. She's sworn to be a nun. He's fallen in love with somebody who wants to be a nun. Brother. That ain't going to fly, is it? And he says, she hath, and in that sparing makes huge waste. Oh gosh, that's such a waste, he says. For beauty, starved with her severity, cuts beauty off from all posterity. What'd you say a minute ago, Chevy? That not only is she going to waste her beauty by not it, but what else is she not going to do? Have babies. She won't make that beauty last another generation. And he says and that's what prosperity is. Or posterity, not prosperity, posterity. She is too wise, or too fair, too wise, wisely too fair, to merit bliss by making me despair. she hath forsworn to love, and in that vow, so she's sworn off love, and in that vow do I live dead that live to tell it now. So by her swearing to live chaste and be a nun, what's it done to him? It's killed him. He lives dead in her vow. Oh, Romeo, it's so sad. Now, has he said anything about her personality? Let's just be real here. What's he talked about? She's beautiful and it. He wants to do it. She won't open her lap, right? So, do you think that he's really in love with her? If all he will tell us about her is that she's fine, that doesn't suggest love. That suggests lust to me, right? But also, he's a teenage boy. We can't forget this. He's a teenage boy. Yeah, he's a teenager. He's like young teenager. Y'all's age or younger. So, do you think somebody that young would know what love is? You don't think so? Can you be in love at y'all's age? I'm asking. It's been a long time since I was y'all's age. So if you really know what love is, so what is love? I remember being y'all's age and thinking I was in love. But it's like that Garth Brooks song, Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. Because now that boy's got like, he ain't a boy no more. He's old like me. And he's got like 3 or 4 kids by 3 or 4 different baby mamas and ain't ever got a full-time job. So I thought I was in love though at that age. Now, I'm not saying you cannot feel an intense depth of feeling at your age. But do you think that love needs to come with some experience about life? Well, my mother married my daddy when she was 18 and they're still married. She was dating him when she was like 16 or 17. And they are still married. Huh? Well, I'm saying though, like, they're still together and they still, like, my daddy just adores her and they're just, like, they're real sweet. It's gross, but they're real sweet, you know. But, like, that's always, like, that was my gold standard, right? I want somebody that, like, you know, I want to be married and have the kind of marriage my parents have where they always got each other's backs and they always love each other. And that's kind of a rare thing these days, isn't it? But she was like 16 when she fell in love with him. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I think it really probably does. Back then, though, when you were a teenager, is it different than now, like circumstances-wise? You were expected to get married real young, right? Especially if you were of the wealthy class. They'd pair you off real young. So you were expected to grow up a lot faster back then. Now, brains haven't changed, right? That human nature is human nature, whether it's 1590-something or now. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it's really love. Maybe he really does, and he's just. Are you always going to tell your buddy about how much you love the girl? What do y'all talk about?
Yours with another's.
Okay, so we've got Capulet and Paris talking together. Who is Paris? Y'all know? Yeah, he's a potential suitor for Juliet. He wants to marry Juliet. What does Daddy say about this? Yeah, she's not old enough yet. How old is she?
14.
Not yet. Back then, we're talking about Renaissance Europe. Alex, pull your mask up. I'm going to tape it to your face. Back then, in Renaissance England, you didn't live very long, honestly. Because think about it. They didn't have antibiotics. They didn't have vaccines. They didn't have hospitals as such. So if you got a cut on your finger, you could get blood poisoning and die, right? I mean, it was just they didn't have modern medicine. So you did not live very long. Babies did not live very long. Like, you might have 5 kids, and out of those 5, one of them makes it to be an adult. You know, I mean, it just, think about all the childhood illnesses that could kill you if you didn't get a shot from when you're about, measles, all that stuff. So you didn't live very long. And then they had things like the plague going around. We think COVID's bad. Think about the bubonic plague that killed most of Europe. So you didn't live a whole long time back then. So that meant your lifespan, if you lived to maybe 30 or 40, like I'd be real old. Don't even look at me like that, Sean. I'm not real old here, but in that time period, I might be. All right. So, if you live to be 40, I'm not yet, but getting there pretty quick. Then you might be, an older person. So, if that's the case, then your lifespan is going to have to happen a little more compressed, right? So instead of, staying in your parents' house till you're 18, and then that's not the timeline they had back then. So they might get married and have kids by the age of 13. It wasn't illegal back then.
Is it still illegal now?
In some countries, it's not. It is here, but in some countries, it's not. So, we're thinking of it, we're trying to judge it on our timeline. Back then, if you were 13, you were probably more like, 18, okay? But mentally, her brain isn't growing any faster than ours does, right? So mentally, she's still a kid. But, society and the world tells you to be a grown-up, So they're talking about marriage, but her dad, even though it would be perfectly acceptable to marry her off at 13, there would be nothing saying that he couldn't do that. That would be perfectly normal. He says no. He wants to give her a while longer. And he says, what? He tells Paris to do what? Wait till she's right, meaning wait until she's ready. And then to do what? What does he say on line 16? But woo her. You know what it means to woo? So, yeah, get her heart, he says. So what does he want for his daughter? To fall, to have a love match, right? They talk about that on Bridgerton, right? Love matches. And it was rare. You see in that show, they were married to whoever, it was suitable for money purposes, right? And so the father would usually pick somebody where he'd get more land or he'd get more money or whatever. But in this case, this father wants his daughter to marry for love. What does that suggest that he feels for his daughter? He cares about her. He wants her to be happy. And he tells us, look, the earth has swallowed all my hopes, but was she the only kid he ever had? The only one that ever lived. The rest of them he's buried in the earth. So he's only got this one daughter, and he wants her to be happy. That's sweet, right? So he tells Paris, okay, we're going to have a party tonight. You can see her there. But you got to make her follow him. He says, my will to her consent is but a part. So my consent is only part of it. What else has got to happen? She's got to want this. That's rare back then. Women didn't get a say-so in this most of the time back then. So for her daddy to want her to have consent and to be happy with this person is a pretty big deal. All right, so they give out this list to go invite these people to this dinner party tonight. And do you see that when this serving man talks, how it looks different? Remember, the poor people in these books or in these plays are going to speak in prose where everybody else speaks in verse. That's how we know they're of the lower class. And it's kind of fun. He's supposed to be kind of funny. But what does he say? He's got to go read this list out to people, but what can he not do? He can't read. So he's got this list of people to invite, but brother can't read. How's he going to do it? Okay, let's see. This is where we go. Okay, we're back in town, and Benvolio and Romeo are together. So let's see what happens.
Vanquish, take.
Diddly doodly. I did it again.
Thou some
There we
new
go.
infection to thy eye, and the rank poison of the old will die. Your plantain leaf is excellent for that. For what, I pray thee?
For your broken shin.
Ah, what, Romeo, art thou mad?
Not mad, but bound more than a madman is.
Shut up in prison, kept without my food, whipped and tormented, and...
Good e'en, good fellow.
God give good deed. I pray, sir, can you read?
I know fortune in my misery.
Perhaps you have learned it without book, but I pray, can you read anything you see.
Aye, if I know the letters in the language.
You say honestly. Rest you merry.
Stay, fellow, I can read. Signor Martino and his wife and daughters, County Anselm and his beauteous sisters, the Lady Widow of Vitruvio, Signor Placentio and his lovely nieces, Mercutio, his brother Valentine, mine uncle Capulet, his wife and daughters, my fair niece Rosaline and Lydia, Signor Valentio and his cousin Tybalt, Lucio and the lively Helena. A fair assembly. Whither should they come? Whither? To supper?
To our house.
Whose house?
My master's.
Indeed, I should have asked you that before.
Now I'll tell you without asking. My master is the great rich Capulet. And if you be not of the house of Montagues, I pray, come and crush a cup of wine. Rest you merry.
At this same ancient feast of Capulet sups the fair Rosaline, whom thou so loves with all the admired beauties of Verona. Go thither, and with untainted eye compare her face with some that I shall show, and I will make thee think thy swan a crow. When the devout religion of mine eye maintained such falsehood, and turned tears to fire, and these who, often drowned, could never die, transparent heretics be burnt for liars, one fairer than my love. The all-seeing sun ne'er saw her match since first the world begun. But you saw her fair, none else being by, herself poised with herself in either eye. But in that crystal scales, let there be weighed your lady's love against some other maid that I will show you shining at this feast, and she shall scant show well that now seems best. I'll go along, no such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of mine own.
Okay. So the dude can't read, right? And he's got this list. And he runs up on Benvolio and Romeo, and they're talking about, dude, I'm going to show you a chick that you'll forget about her, and all that stuff. And Romeo's like, whatever, I don't believe. The dude comes up with this list, and they're like, what's up? And he's like, I can't read. Can you help me read? What does Romeo read? Invitation. It's got all the names on it, right? He's like, where are you inviting these people to? And then he tells him my master's house. And who's his master? And Romeo hears that somebody's coming to this party because he saw it on this list. Who is it? Rosalind, or Rosaline, how they pronounce it, but it's Rosalind. So who is it that he's been in love with? Some girl named Rosalind. He calls her Rosalind or something. I don't know. It's not right. It's Rosalind. But anyway. So he's like, oh, she's going to be at this party. So he wants to go to the party. Is he invited to the party? Negative, Ghost Rider. There ain't no Montagues on this list. But he thinks if he goes to this party, because Benvolio tells him, dude, she's going to be at the party. Look, and he tells him at the top of 33, compare her face with some that I'll show you, and I'll make you think your swan a crow. So what's he saying? I'm going to show you some other girls, and when you see them, you're going to think she's ugly, right? Because a swan is beautiful and a crow is not supposed to be. So, all right, so Romeo says, when the devout religion of my eye maintains such falsehood, then turn tears to fire. And basically saying, if that's true, then may my tears turn into fire and burn my eyeballs out of my head. That's pretty strong words for somebody that, like, he ain't even dating, right? So Benvolio says, oh, hush, let's go look, and I'll show you that she's prettier than Rosalind. And Romeo says, I'll go along, no such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of mine own. So he's going to go to the party, but not to look at other women. What's he want to do? Stalk her. Yeah, he wants to peep Rosalind at this party that he ain't invited to. So, all right. So that's Romeo for you. Go on your canvas now and take these last few minutes to write this paragraph. How does, and you'll see it, how does Shakespeare characterize Romeo in lines 158 through 202? That's where we first get to meet Romeo. Okay, where he's talking to Benvolio. Think about what he has Romeo do and say that what we would characterize him as what? Think about words that you would use to describe him. Then tell me how Shakespeare makes us feel that way. Okay? You ain't got no internet.
It's because you just open your computer